Superintendent of Public Education Jon Fernandez joins us in the KUAM News Zoom room. Good morning, John.
Good morning, and again, good to see both of you, Chris and Sabrina, Jason. I mean, this is, I'm trying to recall like how long we've been actually doing these weekly meetings. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's coming. I mean, it's maybe a half a year and maybe something around that
Right.
time frame. So part of me says, I'm not sure if there's anything more they want to hear from me, but you know, I'm here. If there's any information you need, anything we want to discuss, I'm happy to bring everybody up to date because there is a lot that is always going on in our education system, and no matter whether there's a pandemic or not, there's always something to discuss and something that we're looking ahead to. So I'm happy to start wherever you want, or give you my updates off the top, and happy to take any questions.
Well, we just want to thank you for being accessible, John. You're right; it has been you have kept this commitment for a while. I think it's only been, I want to say, like twice that you had to beg off for other Zoom meetings with the feds or whatever. So we definitely appreciate it, and it is kind of funny how you would think a weekly update with some agencies or whatever it might be a bit much, but with GDOE there is just always something happening every day. And one of the things that I had heard about from one of the board members was that you're doing a presentation about possible face-to-face expansion. Is that something that you're bringing before the board this week, John?
Well, this Friday we wanted to talk to them about where we stood. I guess giving them a status update of where we were, and then obviously we want to tackle this question or begin to tackle it of what it will take to get us back to to increase the number of face-to-face students. And there are a lot of factors involved, and so I know our members have been wanting to discuss this. I mean, it really comes out of just our experience with the past, this past quarter, bringing students back, seeing how many students opted to return face-to-face, hearing from teachers, and now, listening to the community, especially those who do want to see more opportunities for students to come back to the classroom. So, we did, obviously we saw this conversation coming, and we've been obviously waiting for other things to kind of fall into place, including, more information and progress on the vaccination front, more of an opportunity to bring more supports in, with the ESF funds, and then also really taking a look at, at how we want, kind of planning out how we want to proceed between now and the beginning of next school year. Because in order for us to expand face-to-face instruction, and again, like I said, a number of things have to fall into place. So I took a look at our numbers, and I really want our data to drive our discussion. And so I'll be working with the principals in about half an hour to kind of shore up some of the data, make sure that it's accurate and clear. But what we did was we asked our principals to obviously give us their enrollment numbers, but we wanted them to also give us a read on the total capacity that they had to serve students face-to-face on a daily basis. Now, by capacity, what we mean is, given all of the safety requirements, how many students physically could you bring into school on any given day? And based on that capacity, that's really what's going to drive our discussion going forward. So the first question is, basically number one, what is your capacity? And out of, and based on your face-to-face students, how many of you are at or near capacity? I mean, are you full? Are we overflowing with demand? Are there still wait lists for students who want to come in? So in our last couple of weeks, we've noticed that the schools have continued to take in those who remained on the wait list. And a lot of it was just processing them in. And so my understanding at this point is that there no longer are any wait lists, and that anybody who is now requesting to go to face-to-face, we're going to be looking ahead to next quarter, which starts on March 12th, so really just about a week away. But right now, we still have about 9,000 slots open for face-to-face instruction, right? So, I mean, basically what we are looking at is out of all the available face-to-face slots, our students who have chosen to come back face to face, we're kind of seeing them in that 30 to 40% range across the school, across the district. So that means that we're not really overflowing with demand. So if there's anybody out there, board members who say, hey, we're getting calls from parents, and well, the issue is make sure they sign up at school. And if it's happening right now, because I think a lot of schools do not want to shift students into face-to-face in the last week of the quarter, what our plan is to make sure that we reopen registration. And if you do want to come back face-to-face for this coming quarter, we certainly have the room for the most part to accommodate you. So that's one thing we're going to be discussing with the principals to make sure those numbers are right. But the numbers I'm looking at say to me that we've given parents a choice, and they've in large part chosen to keep their kids at home. So I want to share that with the board members, because a lot of them are saying, well, we need more kids back. Well, the issue is parents there's not an overflowing demand to come back. So, we can talk about that. We can determine whether or not it makes sense to mandate it, or to, address the other, limit the other models of learning. But it's going to come down to some type of policy decision that needs to be made, because right now parents at this point aren't they're not filling the slots. I think number two, the other issue is that, as we come to that, the reality of where we are, I think the other issue is that there are some board members who have asked, because of parents are asking, can our students come more than once a week? And so we did the numbers, and the answer is some schools can and some schools can't, right? So there are some schools that can, because the number of students in each cohort does not exceed the total capacity they have to bring, for on a day-to-day basis. So that means that they can combine the cohorts, and they can go every day. They can go 2 days a week instead of 1 day a week. But the challenge there then becomes a policy decision of whether to allow individual schools to make that determination and basically, address it on their own. So some schools will offer it, some schools won't. What do you do for the parents who say, hey, how come you're doing it at other schools? So that's another, discussion. If you're talking about, do we have, the ability for some schools to increase the number of days face-to-face, the answer is going to be yes for some, and for some of them, no. Some of them, they do have slots available, but they don't have, but they still have, too many students to be able to double up and still maintain, the safety requirements. So, those are discussions that we'll have with the board, and they can determine whether or not it makes sense to allow schools to go on their own and, determine that for themselves, while other schools can't. I think the other thing then, the third major issue is really going to be about the models of learning. There are certainly ways that we can envision face-to-face instruction increasing, as well as online instruction increasing, and that's by completing the work that we've started to begin to transition away from the hard copy model of learning. Now, I don't think in my estimation that we could and should do that for fourth quarter. I think because there are many families who rely on hard copy and who are used to hard copy. I think that the real decision ought to be around next school year. Next school year, let's offer online and face-to-face, and then use the fourth quarter to begin the transition, meaning moving those students who want to go online, move them online with the support of laptops and Wi-Fi support, or if they want to go to face-to-face and they know that hard copy is not available, they might want to sign up soon and make sure they have a spot in face-to-face. And so we are anticipating, by mid-March at least, to put out a registration for next school year. And we're planning to talk with the board about limiting it to just the online and face-to-face instruction. And then based on those numbers, we'll be able to plan over the summer for how we can maximize face-to-face instruction and then keep online as a supportive platform for those students who aren't able to be accommodated at school, or who wish to do it, if we continue to allow it, then who wish to continue online. So there's a lot of so I guess that's a lot of those factors. Convincing parents, more parents to go to face-to-face, making sure we address the fact that we have three models of learning, which makes it hard to multiply or expand the existing, the other two platforms, and then doing this in a timely manner where we can also engage the community, have them, have our parents and teachers be able to plan. And I think, we can do all that, with under the right, with the right time frame, being provided. So I guess, again, this Friday, our discussion is to kind of lay out those numbers, let the board, come to terms with, the different options and the different issues, and then, give us their guidance and input as to whether they want to accelerate it faster than our timeline, or to go with our recommendations. So that's the plan. And I think, we're hearing, we hear it on all sides. There are parents who are saying, we're not ready to go back. It's not safe to go back. Why don't we wait till next school year? And there are some who say, I want my kids to go every day this week, and they're only going once. So, it's a matter of balancing all those issues and trying to map the right way forward. And then I think just one major point, and then I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions about that. The other major point is that the limiting factor at the schools really has to do with the safety requirements. And there is a debate right now about whether or not the guidance will remain at 6 foot physical distancing. So obviously with 6 feet, that limits you to maybe fitting 30 to 40% of students in your classrooms, that, based on the numbers that we had. So you're really talking, maybe 8 students per classroom versus 25 in a normal, average classroom. So, that limits our ability to bring everybody back. I mean, obviously we haven't filled all the slots, but once we do, we're going to hit that 8 per classroom. We're going to have to, think about the alternative. So that's the other factor. Number one is, if we have to maintain the 6 feet, what does that mean for trying to bring all of our kids back face to face? Or, do we think, and in our conversation with public health and the governor, do we anticipate any reconsideration of that? We know that the World Health Organization has put forth their guidance that says that you have to be at least 1 meter, physically distanced, which is the, equivalent to roughly 3 feet. And then CDC guidance is at 6 feet, at least 6 feet. So, we're paying attention to that debate, and we'll continue to update ourselves on the science and the research behind it. But I think our board is also paying attention to what other state boards are doing. I think they cited West Virginia State Board of Education, which did issue a mandate for all students, I believe in K to 8, to return to face-to-face instruction. And so I think the board just wants to know what its authority is and whether it can do that, and whether it's the right timing, and try to map out a strategy to get there. And I think we all want to get back to face-to-face instruction as much as possible. It's just a matter of, again, aligning all these different issues and that are going to affect that decision and affect our ability to execute. So let me just go stop there, and I know that's a lot, but hopefully our listeners are able to follow along.
There are some comments, Bree.
There were?
Yeah, on the Facebook live feed.
Okay, I didn't pull it up.
I'll pull it up. So Emma writes here, John, please ask the superintendent, what's the plan for summer school, especially for those kids that need remedial help on the core subjects? And I'm hearing it's a lot of kids, John, have just been struggling because of this pandemic. So what's the deal with summer school?
Yeah, well, we're working on that. I mean, as part of our work to align the funding that we have from ESF and from our consolidated grant, but we are already planning to expand to expand summer school beyond what it normally is, and allow for more students to participate over the summer, and also in our after school program. So when we get the details kind of ironed out, we'll be sure to announce that opportunity. But we are focused on looking at next year, and mapping our way from here to over the summer and into next year in ways where we can, again, bring kids back to school, and then provide the supports through these supplemental programs like summer school, like night school, like after school programs, and expand the opportunity for more students to join. So just stay tuned for that, but those definitely are priorities for us. And we're just trying to align that up with the amount of funding that will be needed to be able to pay teachers over the summer to deliver, instruction and to, just really get the approvals before we announce anything.
Has GDOE done any sort of assessments of the effectiveness of the distance learning, or whether or not students' grades have dropped from face to
Well,
face?
we tried to address the grading policies. Yeah, I'll back it up. So yes, we tried to address grading policy so as not to penalize, just from a grading perspective, not to penalize anybody from, for the pandemic. But at the same time, I think what the underlying question is really, have we assessed the academic progress of students over the course of this past year? And that really has not yet happened. I mean, our teachers are able to conduct their own assessments on a class by class basis, but it really is different, doing it online versus doing a hard copy assessment and then assessing their learning on a day-to-day basis, when they're back face to face. So our effort really is to bring students back to the classroom so we can conduct conduct and address, our assessments of where students are. I think we just have to face reality that everybody globally is kind of going through the same situation. I haven't talked to anybody, and I've talked to folks at Dodea, talked to folks at the private schools about what's happening. Nobody is happy and satisfied about this rapid switch to remote learning that has taken place over the past year. I mean, there's so many challenges with it, involved in that shift. If you look at what online learning is supposed to really support, you really are relying on independently, driven students who are able to take advantage of the online platform. And once you start getting into younger ages, you might be able to run an online class and it looks like it's going smoothly, but you can't measure the level of attention that the students are providing. You can't measure whether their volume is on or off and they're listening and they're absorbing. You can conduct assessments and you can get a sense of what is happening. But I was talking to one of my friends at Dodea this weekend, and they were saying, boy, the kids, from the teachers to the kids, everybody is glad to be back face to face, because the online experience, it might sound cool, just like what we're doing here with Zoom, but it's not the same in the classroom in terms of trying to deliver a lesson and come up with strategies to ensure that kids are engaged, and then at the end of the day to assure ourselves that progress is being made. Ultimately, the goal has to be to bring to maximize face-to-face instruction, and online learning, should be available, or there should be a component of online, an online component to your day-to-day classes. But in reality, I think especially for the younger students, they need to be with the teacher in the classroom. The teacher needs to see what they're doing, to be able to work with them as they work at their desks, able to encourage group work and, pay attention, provide individual attention when necessary. All those things are not possible, under the current situation. So I think we will get to a point where we have to come to terms with the impact. But this is up and down. This is not a Guam DOE issue. I am actually going to be part of a national scholarship selection committee, and I will be, what they're already telling us is, well, these are college students, but when you look at their grades, you need to take into account that this pandemic has affected everybody. So, we might today, as we accept students into college, as we look at their resumes and what they've done in high school, it's going to be we're going to have to take into account that everyone's gone through this situation, and and work our way, and try to do a good job of recognizing what our students have been able to accomplish despite the challenges of the pandemic. So we will get to that point, hopefully, when students come back, as we're able to do summer school, as we're able to do offer these after school programs and get them back next school year, we'll get a better read classroom by classroom as to where students are and how much catching up they need to do.
And also just a couple of questions from our online viewers. When herd immunity is achieved, will it be mandatory for students to return to school?
So that's a question that definitely, we're putting before the board, on Friday. I mean, basically it's this, right now, we've been very flexible, recognizing the challenges of the pandemic and the fact that we don't have herd immunity. We do have risk out there. And the approach we took was to offer 3 models of learning and let our parents choose. And like I said, our goal is to expand face-to-face, but I still have 9,000 face-to-face slots that are unoccupied. And that means that, if we are going to want to fill those slots, we either have to convince or require parents and students to go back to school face-to-face. If we're going to that's just to fill the available face-to-face slots right now, which is not 100% and which is on alternating days. But again, right now there's not overwhelming demand. So if the board says, it's time and we need to get back to face-to-face, one of the questions is going to be, is there going to be an ability and a willingness to mandate the return to school?
Right. Another question, sounds like if you take away hard copy and the student has no access to internet, you would be forcing parents to do something that they're not comfortable to do, especially if there still is a pandemic. I believe that's wrong.
Yeah, so that's related to the previous response, right? I mean, there has to be a decision about whether we continue to offer choices or we allow for, or we mandate parents to go one way or the other, whether it's to go online or to go, face to face. The issue with hard copy and the reason why we've waited to really address this issue is I think last week was the submission of bids for the internet support. So, we want to provide internet support so that if there are hard copy parents and students who say we're not ready to go back face to face, we'd like to try it online, then we'll do so. So we know right now that the laptops, again, we had about 8,000, we've distributed about 4,000. So we still have available laptops for those who want to go online. We figured that probably the internet access was maybe holding back some from going, online. So hopefully when we complete this bid and get the internet access provided, we'll be able to, again, address this concern about if I'm not able to do hard copy, do I have to go back to face-to-face? What we want to say is no, you can go online. We'll provide you a laptop. We'll provide you internet access. If you still say no and you rather go face-to-face, that's a choice. But I do think that offering online and face-to-face will be sufficient. Most school districts offer those 2 options mainly for their students. So I think we're moving in the same direction as other school districts. But the commenter is correct. We're not trying to do that in a way where they don't have an online option. We do want them to have that option online, at least at this point in time, where we all know that face-to-face is still, not only is it still risky for those who may not feel comfortable, but we don't have the capacity for 100% to return. So we do need online to remain an option. And so we don't want, I think equity is a big issue. So we don't want to, distinguish those, differentiate those who can go online based on their ability to afford a computer or internet access. We want them to have that opportunity, and we're working to provide them with that.
One more. What is the graduation rate this year? Something happened this year where now my kids are lacking enough credits to graduate. Just want to know to be sure it's something. It's not something I did.
We won't know the graduation rate till after the 4th quarter. So that's we have we started the night school to address some of the credit recovery for students who may have been impacted, and if they had failed a class, allow them an opportunity to regain that credit, but they would have to put in additional time. And of course, with summer school, we'll need to do that as well. So that's unfortunate if there's a family out there who's been impacted in that way, especially if their kids were on track for graduation. I do want to encourage that they contact their school for the options available, and that could include, again, night school or summer school to regain the credits. Because as you know, we typically have our graduating classes in June, late May, early June, and then we also have a graduation in the summer for those students who also wanted to, who may have needed that half or full credit to complete their, their high school work. So there are opportunities. They just need to, make sure they're in contact and communicating with their school.
Did you want?
I had a caller, John, but she wanted to ask about teacher-student ratio when we do get back to fully face-to-face. I mean, obviously, you would have to wait to see how many.
Well, the teacher-student ratio, we've tried to abide by it currently, as we would under our collective bargaining agreement and under normal circumstances, which is, the teachers to students, we typically maintain a, classroom size around 25, per class. And we try to maintain, those ranges under our contract, during this pandemic. So, but that's assuming that you can have a full class. At this point, if we're only able to, physically bring in 30 to 40% of the students, per class, then obviously, that teacher-student ratio is going to be much improved, in terms of, maybe 8 to 10 students per teacher for that model of learning. The problem is, a lot of our teachers are doing multiple models of learning. So they are teaching different classes. That means that for the same lesson, they're preparing that lesson 3 different ways. We're really trying to find a way to simplify it and maximize, what they're able to do in their classes versus trying to spread them thin, between these 3 models. So, I spoke to a teacher, this past week and, just tried to confirm this. I mean, it's, what are you doing for your classes? Well, they have a lesson, but, when they go online, they have to find ways to translate that lesson into a presentation, translate that presentation. They have to add, maybe through, with technology opportunities for the kids to interact so that they have an opportunity to gauge, to make sure the kids are paying attention and they're also grasping the concepts. When you do that in hard copy, you're basically got to write it all out, explain the concepts, in written form so the parent can walk through it with the student. And then when you do it face to face, obviously, you have to, tweak your lesson so you can do in-class engagement and so forth. So, right now we're doing 3 models. I think going to 2 models will really help us. And we're also looking at converting the online platform we're looking at the possibility of doing regional or district-wide type of an online, online learning so that we can really maximize face-to-face and not have the teachers trying to work on too many different models.
Okay.
Right.
I wanted to ask about ESF, but Chris is giving
No,
me the...
no, go ahead. No, Chris is giving you the.
Yeah, we had Juan Flores on yesterday. He talked about how he completed his plan for the Catholic schools portion of the ESF funds and how they want to spend it. So I'm just wondering if GDOE has completed their plan.
Yeah, we're in the final stages. I mean, I'm already hearing a lot of budget revisions that have to be made, and just kind of fine tuning the application before I can review it to be sent to USDOE. And then again, we're kind of paying attention to this new bill that the Senate will be considering for the 3rd round. So I think the reality, and again, we're on the same page, the private schools and the public schools. We have different sizes and different populations, and it makes our decision making. I think that's where our decision making might differ in how we're trying to strategically move these resources. And then, of course, I think I heard Juan yesterday. He talked a lot about the fact that what we're looking for are not things that only we need on Guam. I mean, we're in a competitive market for laptops, for sneeze guards, for anything that might be related to the pandemic. This ESF funding is going everywhere. So everyone's taking this money and they're looking at how they can order cleaning supplies and wipes and masks. So again, like you said, a lot of the stuff is coming in from off island. So even as we move through the procurement process, which we need to do, then we have this waiting period for it to actually arrive. And we're subject to the vendors completing the orders, the vendors putting it, starting to ship it, and making sure that we can track the shipment so that they come in on time. So it's not a fun process, but really, as I look at the big picture, we're talking about a 3-year, almost maybe 4-year type of strategy that we have in place. What we need right now, and what we hope to get as soon as possible, really are things that are supposed to carry us forward over the next 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years. So I think the work we put into it, we're going to be a little bit frustrated by the speed at which we are getting these materials and supplies. I mean, right now, again, we're loading up on what we want to buy, but then as soon as we're done, we got to enter the requisitions, go through the proper procurement methods. We have to allow time to ensure there's adequate competition, and then once we make the selection, God forbid there be a protest, but if we can do this, we can do it effectively, then we can, then we go to the vendors and say, please bring it in. And they'll say 60 days, 90 days. And so now we're really looking at next school year as well for a lot of these things to be in place. So it's a tough, thing to do. We're really lucky on Guam, I think, because of the fact that we're both a state and local jurisdiction, and we're, and our size of our, community lends itself to, trying to address these issues more collaboratively than if you see other states. What happens in other states is that the money goes to the state Department of Education, and then after that, there's a whole set of other processes by which all the local school districts, public, private, charter, have to then apply for those funds. That's a separate process, and then once those funds are available, procurement happens. And so there's a lot of concern by all the states about the ability to push these funds through quickly. And so we're part of that. You're giving us a lot of funding, but we have to be accountable. We can't take shortcuts, and we're going to do our best to try to push this through. We don't want to end up after all this with a mess. So everything we're doing right now to safeguard the funds, account for the what's being purchased, make sure everybody is in agreement on this end, will put us in good standing as we get these things in over the next year or 2 years or so. But again, with the first round, we were talking about immediate response. Now we're talking about sustaining safe environments. So all these investments are meant to last. They're meant not to be, of course, we're going to try to get face masks and all these other things put together. But now we're talking about facility repairs and air filters and purification centers and aircon upgrades. So these things are really meant to kind of bring us through the next couple of school years, so that hopefully on the other side of it, this pandemic will be well addressed by that time.
Jon, we appreciate your time this morning, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Can I just do a quick shout out?
Please do.
Yesterday we announced the 6 finalists for the Guam Teacher of the Year, and I just want to say congratulations to the 6, to all of our 12 semifinalists, but the 6 finalists who made it to this final round, and those are Nashista Benavente Delgado from George Washington, Van Lebranda from Okudu High School, Michelle de Guzman from Liguan Elementary, Christine Gyanchan from Finagazan Elementary, Dr. Benji Santiago from Agata Johnston, and Mr. Seth DeRosen from Alacal Elementary School. If there was ever a year where I think all of us as parents really, really, really want to thank the teachers for what they do normally for our kids every single day, I think this is the year. And I know we can't honor everyone at once, and and there's going to be a Teacher of the Year, but all of our teachers, all of their the supports they provided, we want to thank them for their work, and especially congratulate the 6 finalists for the Guam Teacher of the Year. They will be going through an observation, whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face, but once that observation is done, then there will be a winner selected, and they will represent us on the national stage. So we look forward to that. And again, congratulations to all of our finalists.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Jon. Yeah. Viva DOE!
Viva!
Oh, wait, no cheering. Kidding. Thank you, Jon.
Thanks, Jon.
Appreciate
All right,
it.
thank you guys.
That's all
See you
right.
next week.
Okay.